The sound of the horns came first, deep, cold, and endless. By the time the villagers saw the sails, it was already too late. The sun rose red over the small coastal village of Lindholm. Fishermen had barely dragged in their morning catch when shadows began to move across the sea, long, sleek ships cutting through the mist. They carried dragon heads on their prows and men with fire in their eyes. The Vikings had come. They came not for trade nor for war in the name of kings. They came for plunder, gold, cattle, food, and people. The men of Lindholm, farmers and shepherds with old swords and wooden shields, tried to form a line near the shore. They had seen smoke rise from other villages in the past week. They knew what that meant. When the first arrows flew, it was like the sky itself had turned against them. The battle lasted only minutes. Steel met wood, flesh met fire. By sunrise, the men of Lindholm lay still on the beach, and the Vikings moved through the village, and their boots sinking into blood and ash. The women hid where they could, behind broken carts, inside smoke-filled huts clutching their children. But the raiders always found them, and that was only the beginning of their suffering. To live after the Vikings came was not a mercy. It was a sentence. The surviving women were dragged to the center of the village. Their homes burned behind them, their husbands dead or dying in the fields. The Vikings moved among them, speaking in harsh tongues, laughing as they tore away wedding bands and necklaces. Iron shackles replaced gold. Those who resisted were beaten. Those who cried were mocked. A few tried to run, none got far. By nightfall, the Vikings' longships were ready to leave, filled not with treasure but with people. The women, daughters, mothers, wives, were now cargo. They were packed below deck, where darkness mixed with the stench of seawater and blood. The sound of the oars above was the rhythm of their new lives, slaves of the north. For days they traveled through storm and silence. Some prayed, some screamed, some sat in hollow quiet, their eyes fixed on nothing. But they all knew one truth: death would have been kinder. They called it trade, but it was the selling of souls. When the ships reached the markets, the air was thick with heat and noise. In places like Hedeby and Birka, great Viking ports, traders gathered like vultures. There were rows of captives, women from Ireland, England, France, even from the Slavic lands. Each woman was inspected like livestock, hair pulled, teeth checked, scars noted. The price of a human soul was measured in silver coins. Some were bought by Viking families forced into servitude or worse, to serve as concubines, mothers to children they never wanted. Others were sold to faraway lands, their names forgotten before the ships even left harbor. The trade routes reached as far as the Black Sea and beyond, to Constantinople and Baghdad. There, the same women who once lived in cold northern villages now stood under burning desert suns, bound by chains that crossed continents. Archaeologists would later find traces: iron collars, carved wooden shackles, and the bones of women buried far from home. Each one told a story too terrible for words. Even when they disappeared beyond the horizon, the Vikings left ghosts behind. In every village they raided, the same story repeated. Fires burned where laughter once lived. Children were left crying beside the bodies of their fathers. The women who survived were never seen again. Rumors spread faster than the longships themselves. Some said the women were taken to serve Viking lords. Others whispered that many died at sea, thrown overboard when storms came. But the truth, historians would later uncover, was far darker. Slave ships often carried around 20 women each, chained, starved, and sick. Those who survived the journey were sold again and again. The lucky ones died quickly. The others learned that death was not the worst thing that could happen. And yet, in the silence of the night among the ashes of their villages, the people remembered. They told stories, lit candles, whispered names, because even if the Vikings could steal their bodies, they could not erase their memory. History remembers the Vikings as heroes of conquest, but behind their glory lies a truth written in tears. Centuries later, historians uncovered the other side of the saga, the voices of those who were never meant to be heard. Through letters, bones, and the ruins of forgotten markets, the picture became clear. The Vikings were not just warriors, they were traders of suffering. Their raids were not only for gold but for people. Their victories were built on broken families. And for the women they captured, life itself became the punishment. In Baghdad's archives, old writings spoke of pale-skinned slaves, women from the far north sold for silver and silk. In Scandinavian graves, archaeologists found women buried far from their homeland, proof of those who never returned. The Vikings changed history with their courage and ships, but they also left behind a legacy of cruelty, one the world is only now beginning to face. And perhaps that is the greatest tragedy of all, that so many stories ended not with death on the battlefield, but with silence in the dark. The sagas told of heroes, men who sailed the seas and fought mighty wars. But the truest stories were the ones they tried to forget, the ones of the women who suffered in their shadow. Their names may be lost, but their pain remains carved into history's bones, because behind every Viking victory, there was someone who never came home,